I'm David Lombardo, and right now on AINTV.com, we're going to go on board this Global Express and interview Bombardier's David Dixon. David is Vice President for the Asia region, and we'll be talking about his company's plans in Asia and what's happening in that region of the world. There's kind of a culture in the region about people don't like to be ostentatious. They don't talk about big purchases. It's hard to get a feel for how many aircraft are actually being sold. Do you have any sense of that?
Well, your first point, yes, it is, and I like to liken it to the private banking of aviation. Is a discretion. You move around at your own time rather than the airline's time. So in that respect, it's exactly consistent with the rest of the world. But this is a relatively small market. When you compare it to, say, North America, there are still less aircraft in Asia than there are in the whole of California. So we're coming from a very small base, but it is rapidly changing. There have been all sorts of constraints over the years. It's been political. You've got the Chinese environment has changed dramatically in the last 10, 20 years. Airport access is a lot easier. So all of these things are making it easier. Airports are now, some of the new airports in the region, in Malaysia, in Thailand, have eased the pressure of slots, because there's now the older airports, which for us are fine. We love the old airports. All I say is bring them on, give them to us, because that's where we go. And most of the older airports are closer to the cities, which again is a reason why this type of airplane, the Global, the Challenger, whatever, has a role to play.
There's a sort of chicken and egg situation here, in that some people are saying, well, the time's not right to have a business aircraft because there's no infrastructure. And yet the people who can develop the infrastructure are saying the time's not right to do it because there aren't enough aircraft. I mean, can we get beyond that sort of situation?
I thought I'd partially covered that when I mentioned the new airports. The infrastructure's there, even people don't acknowledge it or realize it. Japan, I think, is the one place which has gone backwards over the last few years, and they've sort of seen it as a major investment. It isn't. We snuck in and out behind all the rest of the airplanes. We're not high profile, and we thrive in that. If I was to plead to on behalf of the industry, I would say, Japan, wake up. It's not that hot in the kitchen. Come in. It's quite all right, you know.
The economy, U.S. economy, is getting soft, and we have a big credit issue going on now, and the Hong Kong dollar, for instance, is tied to that economy. So how is that affecting what's going on in the region, or is it?
Well, we haven't seen any significant impact. I mean, a couple of indicators are that charter market is growing. I mean, the fuel price is a factor, not just the credit issue. The fuel price, and I think today we saw little over 100 US for a gallon of oil, barrel of oil. So things are changing, but I think the market and the economy is outgrowing those changes in North America. Historically, we had 70% in North America, 30% internationally. That's the rest of the world other than the US. Now it's the other way around. 30% is North America, 70% is international. So the industry is a little bit isolated from that. America's still important, and it's still buying more airplanes, just the rest of the world is buying many more airplanes. You've got the whole of the new states in the former Russian, Soviet sphere, which weren't even markets before. You've got India, again, wasn't even a market. You went to try and sell a Global Express or a Challenger. China, who would have thought, perhaps arguably the major capitalist tool. So things have changed, and this is making up for what's going on in America. You'd need to ask my colleagues in the States, but from the numbers I see, they're still selling a lot of these airplanes in North America. So I think if you look at interest rates, if you might as well put the money into something like this and use it to develop a business than sit in the bank and gain 1 or 2%.
You're active in the Asian Business Aviation Association. It's not a fledgling organization. It's been around actually quite a number of years. It's sort of gotten a kind of a rebirth here, and it's beginning to grow again. Philosophically, I think what they're looking at is the paradigm of lobbying, like we do in the US or even in Europe, isn't probably as appropriate in Asia. They're looking to be more educational. Are we going in the right direction? Do you think that organization is going to get legs?
Well, I hope so, because I'm part of it, and obviously I'm trying to help it grow. The problem is, you've got many countries and many cultures. North America is one solid mass, and it's more homogenous and easier to put pressure on one entity. Here we've got many governments, many people with a say in what happens in business aviation. So it's a slightly more complicated issue. But yes, education, I'm educating people every day on the subject, and there's a lot of people who don't understand what we do or understand the asset value or what it can bring you. But that is changing. So the education profile, I think, is always being raised by all of us, whether it's Bombardier, whether it's my competitors. But as far as the association is concerned, we're working to join up with MBAA and get sort of added muscle, because obviously there's a wealth of experience in North America and Europe about how this industry has contributed to the growth and the economies of companies and countries and things. So it's an important vehicle through which we're trying to raise the profile. I'm not using it to sell Global Express or sell Challengers or the Learjet. I'm trying to use it to make people understand the benefit of those airplanes. And as there are other representatives from other manufacturers in that organization.
Do you see any particular aircraft in your product line as being a big seller in this region?
Global, the airplane we're on now, the Global Express, has got about 58% of the market in the ultra long range market. Because Asia's a long way from anywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. In Australia, you're a long way from anywhere. But this, where we're sitting now, you're one stop from New York from here in this type of airplane. And the distances are significant, even within the region. And that's where the Challenger, the 604, 605 series, are done well. We've got a little over 60% of the market in that category of airplane. And it's generally started off in the high end, the bigger airplanes, the heavier metals. And I think in time, the smaller airplanes will gain momentum as people understand the value of short flights into the inner parts of cities and countries, the inner parts of areas and communities in the various countries here where access is complicated. Indonesia, 13,000 islands, I think. Philippines, 7,000 islands or something. Communications, you can't drive. You can't go by train.
Exactly.
So air travel is essential. And a lot of the resource-based industries are now appreciating the value of the smaller airplanes. If they've got to get the right people into their factories, their plants, there's a problem. You need parts, you need engineers into these things. So I think we'll see a greater growth in numbers of the smaller airplanes in the Learjet category. Although at the moment, the Global is very strong, and as I hope you can see just from the sitting in it, it's quite an impressive airplane.
And finally, what looking forward to 2008, what sort of problems do you foresee? What kind of goals do you have for this area?
Well, the goals are always, the goalposts are always raised by the company, so I'm always chasing my tail in that respect. But that's fine. I think the market in this region is going to be strong. There's no indications of a reversal. Putting aside some catastrophic event somewhere in the world. Now, that could be anything, and whatever. Well, one doesn't wish that, but unless there's some reversal that we cannot anticipate, I really can't see India and China going backwards. They can only grow, just the sheer weight of numbers there. So I'm looking for a very positive year, a better year than last year. You know, people speculating maybe North America is going to have a rough time. Maybe it will, and I'm sure for some people it may be tough. But here we're coming from a fairly low base. As I say, the numbers of airplanes are fairly small, but the acceptance level, all these other pressure points through the associations and people's just education of this type of airplane, they're beginning to understand what it is, because there's a lot of money around here.
David, thank you very much. We're with David Dixon aboard this beautiful Bombardier Global Express. And for AIN TV, I'm David Lombardo.